A Chinese girl was seen walking alone in a train station when suddenly, she was kidnapped and taken to a place full of unknown men. One of the men who was sitting there is Emil Dochesky, a Russian mobster who led the Russian gangster. He kidnapped the little girl to ask her for a series of numbers from her. Flashback to the scene far before the incident. This girl's name is May. She is different from any other child her age, as she possessed a supercomputer-like brain that could accurately do any math faster than any normal human. Her special ability even made the principal of her school plan to transfer her to a special school. When she came home from school with her friends, May was suddenly kidnapped by a mysterious man. She was brought to her uncle's place. The fact is, besides her super ability with math, she also had an impeccable memory to memorize something in a short time. That was the reason she was kidnapped. Her uncle, Han Jiao, needed her help to manage his business in America. She was brought to America accompanied by a man named Quan Chong. Somewhere else in a boxing match, a man named Luke Wright had a match where he could easily win. He even sent the opponent to the hospital with a serious injury. Annoyed by the unbalanced match, Luke immediately went to meet the competition official and punched his face right on the spot. The problem was a Russian mobster. Emil Dochesky had placed a lot of money betting on Luke's opponent's win, but since Luke won the match, he suffered a big loss. He didn't stay silent and planned his revenge on Luke. Realizing how bad his situation is, Luke rushed to return home to ask his wife to leave from there, but sadly, Luke was late. Emil's gang members arrived before him and killed his family. Luke couldn't do anything and submitted to the situation. One of the gang members was Emil's son named Vasily Dochesky. He told Luke that he wouldn't kill him but would make him suffer by killing everyone he knew. Somewhere else, Quan Chong and May had arrived in America. They met a police officer named Captain Wolf, the one responsible for taking care of May's residence paper. Captain Wolf is corrupt police that helped Han Jiao's triad business in America to run smoothly. Meanwhile, Luke, who had nothing left in his life, decided to move out of the city to avoid the Russian mafia. A year passed and May had been dealing with his uncle's business accounting in Chinatown ever since she set foot there. Meanwhile, Luke returned to the city and lived as a homeless in a shelter to get some food and a place to live. The next morning, Luke went to a convenience store to get something to eat, but on his way, he bumped into someone who cursed at him. When he arrived at the store, he realized that his money was gone and the one who bumped into him earlier was a pickpocket who took all his money, but instead of being angry or annoyed, he laughed out loud and made the police there kick him from the store. Turned out, the police knew him and with his colleagues, he took Luke somewhere. When they arrived, the police suddenly beat Luke. Turned out, before becoming a fighter, Luke once worked as a police and stopped after finding out about the serious offense his colleagues had violated. The fact that he knew about his colleagues' violation made everyone hate him. On the other hand, Han Jiao, who just arrived from China, met May and gave her a piece of paper with a series of numbers for her to remember. He said that the numbers were very important and told her to remember them. After that, to avoid someone putting his hand on the paper, it was burnt down. Then, May was taken somewhere else where she would receive another series of numbers for her to remember, but halfway through the destination, they were ambushed by the Russian mafia group who kidnapped May. Unexpectedly, the police troops led by Captain Wolf arrived at Emil's hideout shortly after they kidnapped May. Quan Chong told Captain Wolf to get May back dead or alive with a big reward. At the same time, Emil called Captain Wolf and offered him a bigger reward in exchange for him to withdraw all his troops, but Wolf immediately refused the offer and realized that May might have something important with her and might be worth more than the reward itself. Somehow, May managed to escape from the kidnapper and forced Emil to order all his men to look for her. Meanwhile, the triads who were at a disadvantage had no other choice but to start a war with the Russian mafia group. On the other hand, at the subway station, Luke was seen standing nearby the track and about to kill himself when he suddenly saw May. He stopped his intention and decided to find out what was going on with May. Shortly after, the Russian mafia gang members who were looking for May arrived. May hid behind the pillars to avoid getting caught, and when the subway's gate was opened, she immediately entered. Luke realized something was wrong and decided to follow May, while on the other hand, the Russian mafia gang members were also on the train, looking for May. Luke beat them all to save May. When the subway stopped, he tried to approach May to calm her down, but she immediately ran away from him right before the subway gate was closed. Thankfully, Luke managed to get away from the subway too. Luke tried to look for May, who at that time was taken by the police, but before they got away, Luke saw her and took down the police. At that very moment, the Russian mafia gang members showed up at the scene, so Luke decided to take the police's car to get away from them. A car chase occurred, and during that, one of the Russian gang members' cars crashed into a bus while Luke managed to kill all passengers in the other car.
Let's go.
I'm 5 years old.
After the car chase, Luke went to buy a nice suit and took May with him to a hotel to hide from the Russian gang members. On the other hand, the triads had tracked May's whereabouts from the phone she brought with her. At the same time, May and Luke were talking about the series of numbers that May had with her. Turned out, the reason why everyone wanted to get their hands on it was that it was a combination of codes used to open a safe. May then said that apparently, there was another safe whose code was still unknown. Shortly after, the triads arrived at the hotel lobby and threatened the hotel staff to tell the room where May and Luke were. Suddenly, the hotel guards showed up and a gunfight between them broke out.
Hands up so I can see them.
No one leaves the hotel!
May and Luke, who realized that they were not safe anymore, immediately left the hotel, but before they left, May wrote the number combination on a piece of paper and gave it to Luke. Meanwhile, the triads took all the visitors there as hostages. Luke and May managed to get out of their room unarmed and get to the lobby using the emergency stairs. At the same time, the police arrived at the place and forced another gunfight with the triads. Luke, who just arrived at the lobby, immediately beat all the triads in there. In the middle of the fight, May, who tried to get away from the scene, was caught by Quan Chong, while Luke had to run away because he was chased by the police. The triads tried to get out of the hotel by blending with the visitors, but one of the police realized it and a gunfight between them broke out.
Hey, stop right there!
Meanwhile, Luke, who was chased by the police, hijacked a car to get away from there and later took a taxi. Luke then called Vasily using the phone he took from one of the Russian gang members earlier. By using Russian, he trapped Vasily to tell him his location by telling him that he wanted to give him the code combination that he got. Vasily, who didn't know that he was set up, happily spilled his location to Luke. Somewhere else, Captain Wolf met the mayor named Major Tremello. It turned out that both Captain Wolf and Major Tremello once worked in the same team as Luke. Major Tremello reminded Wolf that with Luke's combat skills, he would be a deadly threat to them and there was only a single person that could stop him. Wolf then told Major Tremello that Luke was involved with May's problem and had the code that they targeted. Hearing that, Major Tremello ordered Wolf to close every access in and out of the city. On the other hand, Quan Chong was seen contacting someone named Alex Rosen. He told Alex to change the location for their meeting to tell the other safe's code combination. Meanwhile, Luke had arrived at the location that Vasily told him. He monitored the surroundings to make sure his plan would run smoothly. His mission there was to find Vasily and took him hostage to threaten Emil. After taking Vasily as his hostage, Luke called Emil to force him to tell him the location of the safes. He threatened Emil by using Vasily. He told Emil that he would use Vasily to spill every information about his business to his competitors and even targeted his wife and children if he refused to tell him the location. Cornered, Emil had no other choice but to tell him about the safes. One of the safes was located in a casino and contained $30 million, while the other safe was located somewhere far away and contained something worth $30 million. Realizing that it was impossible for a solo mission, he called his old partners, including Captain Wolf, to help him retrieve the safe. He offered a reward worth $30 million divided equally between each of them. Knowing how cunning his friends were, he memorized the code combination and burned the paper down so that it would force his partners to protect him and wouldn't kill him. They started their mission by taking down every single guard in the casino and blowing up the steel door guarding the room where the safe was. To avoid unwanted things, Luke told everyone to drop their weapon on the floor and started opening the safe, but halfway, with his quick hand, he took his gun which he put nearby him and killed everyone except Captain Wolf. He then ordered Wolf to open the safe with his guide and get out of there safely. After they went far enough from the casino, Luke tied Wolf and put him inside the car trunk with Vasily, who was there before him. On his way, Luke called Major Tremello to give Alex his number because he was the one who had the other safe's code combination. After that, Luke called Alex. On the call, Alex told Luke that apparently, the other safe contained a cassette containing data of important people and some other confidential information including banknotes and accounts. Since the money that Alex was after was already in Luke's hand, like it or not, he had to follow Luke's command. Luke asked him to get May back from the Triads in exchange for the money. Alex then went to the Triads' hideout. When Alex arrived, he was welcomed by Quan Chong and his men. It didn't take him long to take down all of them. With Alex's impeccable combat skill, he was the person that Major Tremello mentioned, the only one that could bring Luke down. Meanwhile, Luke arrived at Major Tremello's office to ask him to give the only backup for the data that Alex had. The next morning, Luke went to the location to meet Alex. Turned out, Alex and Luke once worked on the same team and the place was the same place that they used to dump dead bodies back when they still worked. Luke took May hostage and intended to kill her and Luke to get away with the money and data, but Luke realized that and hid the money somewhere safe. Luke then offered to have a duel. If Alex could beat him, he would give him the location of the money. Turned out, May had a gun with her and shot Alex when he was off guard. Luke then took another shot that killed him. After that, Luke set Wolf free and ordered him to return Vasily to his father. Later on, May returned $29.98 million back to Han Jiao, her uncle, and would return the rest later. She also threatened to bring down Han Jiao's business with the data she had inside the cassette if he still disturbed her life. In the end, May was seen talking with Luke inside a car. Luke had planned to send May to a special school,